Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show, your daily fix of football chat on STV. The main headlines tonight: Ronnie Dyler says he's to blame for Celtic's poor European results. Rangers will have a minute's silence as a mark of respect to the sad loss of their former player Arnold Peralta. And weather permitting, we'll look ahead to a full card of fixtures across all four divisions in Scotland on tonight's programme. Delighted to have your company. Alan Ruff is alongside me, Peter Martin, and I'm delighted we have Motherwell's Stephen McManus to talk football, and it's going to be a big weekend for the Fir Park side as well. Let's cut to the chase of Fenerbahce last night, Ruffy, against Celtic. It could have been another defeat. They lost a player and suddenly Celtic were able to get a point.
Yeah, I think in any other circumstances a draw away from home in Fenerbahce would have been seen as a good result, but I think everybody will look at the whole campaign. No wins, which doesn't look good on paper. So apart from that, I think it's better just getting out of the road and just moving on to other things.
Yeah, it was a game that I don't think they were looking forward to eventually playing. It was all about pride, as John Collins mentioned prior to it. As an overview, was last night's performance perhaps indicative of the way the whole campaign's gone in the Europa League and beyond that? Yeah,
I think you touched on it there just now. I think Fenerbahce were the better side, you know, when they got a player sent off. Obviously Celtic went on and get the goal, but for where I was, Fenerbahce looked at 1-0 as if that's all we need, you know, and that's all we want, and they tried to see out the game, and obviously Chris Commons got the goal. But apart from that, as I said earlier there, it's just the disappointment of the whole campaign.
And of course, Stephen, you'll be well attuned to the expectations of Celtic fans. It's simply not good enough as the first assessment of it. But secondary to that, I think a lot of Celtic fans don't want to be in that tournament anyway.
Yeah, that's the Champions League is where they want to be. The club want to be there, the supporters want to be there, but more importantly, the players want to play in the games. The Europa, it's been a disappointing campaign, and listen, the players will have learned from it, hopefully, but you want to be playing in the biggest tournament, which is the Champions League.
Yeah. Do you anticipate, Ruffy, any major changes to that Celtic squad in January? Because this festive period is certainly going to determine whether there is any challenge whatsoever. Hugh McDonald mentioned the other night there that maybe they might not even need to buy. What's your assessment of it?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think they've got enough in abundance in midfield. They've certainly got strikers who they can bring in, defensively as well. I think they're well covered. So I think we're all in agreement that Aberdeen and Hearts will give them a wee challenge, but at the end of the day, I don't think they should be spending any money at all. They want to wait and get the right people at the right time for the Champions League next year. You know, so everybody tells you when the window comes, you don't get the top players that you really want. You're just sort of buying what's going about. So I would save the money and go for a big push to get back into the Champions League.
You can only look at the evidence and the facts. Aberdeen slipped up badly and had a really bad run. Of the teams you've played, is there anyone that you think could at least give them a run for their money? I mean, I know St Johnstone, Jeff Brown, the former chairman, says he wants them to try and go and get second. That's the limit of their expectation, which is great for St Johnstone. But Aberdeen and Hearts, we were all willing them to put up a fight.
No, not for me. I don't think anybody can compete with Celtic. I think this year in the league there's a lot of teams that are very similar. I think out of the teams that we've played so far, I think Aberdeen and Hearts are probably the two that have been for me they've been the best of the rest so far. And after that, it's very much of a muchness. But no, I don't think anybody can compete with Celtic just now, Peter. So I'm the same as Roughie. If it was me, I think they'd spoken about a left back before Kieran Tierney's come in and done it really, really well. So I'd be disappointed if he never got a good run in the side, because I think he deserves it. He's now picking up the experience of playing in big European games, which will stand them in great stead for the future.
Aberdeen and Hearts, can you separate them tomorrow at Pittodrie, Ruffy?
I think it'll be a great game. I hope the Aberdeen supporters turn out as they usually do. It'll be a great atmosphere. I think maybe home advantage might just sneak that one. I think Aberdeen had proved last week that they're beginning to get back to the style of play that they were. They had a lot of pace about them last week, and big players like Hayes and McGinn were beginning to play again, so I think I would go for Aberdeen.
Yeah, can you pick a winner, Stephen?
I fancy Aberdeen. I think they're very good going forward at times. I think defensively they weren't as good as what they have been at the start of the season, but as Roughie says here, they've definitely picked up, and the Aberdeen support play a big factor in it. I think if they get right behind it, Aberdeen, then it'll be, as Roughie says, it'll be a good game, but I think Aberdeen will be too strong for them.
Derek McInnes says he reckons it should be a longer winter break. What's your take on it?
I would just take any sort of winter break when you get to over 30s. You just want any sort of winter break. No, listen, I think 2 weeks is going to be the time frame, but I think 3 week break would certainly be fine. You want to play in summer football for me, because when the pitches are a lot better, Scottish football gets a lot of stick at times, but there's a lot of good things happening, a lot of good young kids that are in it. Give them the best platform, which is play more games earlier on when the pitches are a lot better.
And what's the reception been like to the new League Cup format among the guys in the dressing room?
A lot of people they don't really know kind of what's it's going to be. Straight away they're looking at saying, is it going to affect your summer? Yeah. The likelihood is that it is, but I think something's got to change in the game, whether it's bigger league format, more teams in the top league, earlier start. I think something's got to give. So I think for me it's definitely a step in the right direction.
It's an interesting point you make there, because a lot of people might say, oh, wait a minute, players moaning about, does it affect their summer? But the season is getting tighter and tighter now for players to even think about even getting a rest.
Yeah, well, you think you are coming in about a month before, right? Maybe earlier than that?
Usually it depends the time frame that you're going to be off.
You're talking about we're finishing up at the end of May, and the competition starting in the middle of July, so you're lucky if you have 2 or 3 weeks.
I mean, we were 21 days. That's what we got off this year, because obviously the playoff games against Rangers, which, listen, at the end of the day, you're doing a job that you're lucky to be doing, but your body still has to recover as well, because the games are so demanding. So, but I think a 3 week break would definitely be a lot better.
Yeah, and are managers sympathetic to maybe giving you little bits of time off during the season?
A lot of it determines how well you are doing as well. I think players, if the manager knows, we've obviously got Mark McGee's come in for us, and we went, I think, maybe 3 or 4 weeks without a day off, because he's trying to stamp his own authority on, which is great. Players buy into whatever a manager's going to say if they see results and progression. So it's, I'm not got, players don't mind not having a day off if you're winning on a Saturday. But I think with the winter shutdown, the winter break, I think it would certainly be a good thing.
Yeah, and just on this League Cup fiasco, it's kind of it's stretched a couple of days longer than I thought it was going to stretch, Roughie. And Budge getting a bit of support from other people who said that they weren't fully aware of, the whole implications of the League Cup format when it was going to be announced, how well informed they all were on it. I think at the end of the day, it's a kind of a tit for tat here. At the end, everybody seemed to have been kept in the loop, maybe not as extensively as they would have liked. Is that a fair assessment of it?
Yeah, well, first of all, I didn't realise there was that many committees going about. There seemed to be a committee for everywhere. And
somebody's got to earn money, Roughie.
Exactly, and obviously it looks as if they haven't been communicating properly. I don't know if the SPFL have the right to make the major decision, as long as they keep everybody in the loop, because we know what happens when we leave it up to the clubs themselves to start voting. We could be here for another 6 or 7 months before we push anything through.
Yeah, and I noticed a clamour to try and get Anne Budge on the SPFL board because of her business acumen, which obviously is second to none. I think, if anything, probably people are just waiting till she maybe serves a little bit more time. Is that fair, before they eventually welcome her on? I think she would be a welcome addition.
She's definitely be a welcome addition, but as I think we all know, there's a pecking order there. There's things you have to go through to get there. I mean, I'm sure there'll be a lot of owners or chairmen at clubs been waiting to go on that board, so it depends whether she can jump in front of a few people. Yep,
so both you guys going for Aberdeen. There are a number of other things I want to talk about. Arnold Peralta is the saddest story that I've read this morning, for a player to lose his life at 26, at the peak of his powers as well, just going into a really purple patch in your life as a player. It'll be a sad occasion at Ibrox ahead of Morton.
Yeah, absolutely. It puts things into perspective when you see things like that's going on. I think the full football world was shocked to see the sad news. So at times like this, your thoughts are with his family.
Yeah, absolutely. Roughie, 26 years of age. I mean, I think he was well over a season with Rangers, and there were times when he certainly had the trickery to light up the Ibrox Stadium. And at 26 to lose your life is just a tragedy. And I think everybody, our hearts go out to the entire family, and of course, the Rangers fans will show their respects.
Yeah, as Stevie touched on it there. You know, sometimes we concentrate on football so much we forget about people's personal life and the tragedies that go about, and that certainly is a tragedy. A young player like that who had still a lot to offer in the game.
Yep. Okay. Coming up in the next part of the programme, we are going to look at all the other fixtures in the Premiership. We'll get Motherwell Stephen McManus' take on his big game as well. At the bottom end of the table, it's all to play for, and we'll look at the rest of the divisions in Scotland as well. Welcome back to Peter and Roughie's football show. It's hard work. Sometimes you need to take a drink right out of the break. Stephen McManus is our guest on the programme, and we're looking ahead to the weekend's football. Alan Ruff is alongside me, Peter Martin. Of course, I'll tell you, you'll be doing with a drink tomorrow in that game because it's massive for you. At the bottom end, I'm looking, you've got a game in hand,
yep.
And suddenly, you know, this whole thing could change. 2 or 3 good results, and suddenly Motherwell are looking at maybe trying to push into the top 6.
We spoke about it earlier, Peter, about how tight it is at the bottom, you know, and all the games they're hard games. Tomorrow's going to be a hard game. It's an important game. Dundee will come with full of confidence. You know, we played them obviously at their place. I think they beat us 2-0 or 2-1 the last time. And again, we felt we deserved something out of the game in the first half performance, but it's just trying to find that level of consistency. That's been the hardest point for us so far. So with Mark McGee coming in, it's been different, but it's been very good, and hopefully we can pick up a few wins along the way. Yeah,
I mean, without comparing them, because I think it's an unfair thing to do between one manager to the next, but what's it been like under Mark McGee, and what have the players been saying? Are they surprised by him, or you'll be well aware of him?
Yeah, I think certainly from my experiences, you can see the similarities between both Mark and Gordon. Everything's all about hard work. It's about working as hard as you possibly can in the training ground, looking after yourself on the pitch, off the pitch. And he's kind of went back to basics. He's wanting more crosses in the box. He's wanting more shots for the strikers. Because I think when you see our goals tally this year, that's been the biggest problem, is we've not scored enough as a team. But since he's certainly come in, there's been a better feel. There's more confidence within the group, and that comes because you can see progression on a Saturday.
Yeah, and again, Ruffy, you know, there's no point in saying a squad's too good to go down, because, you know, time and time again last season we looked at Motherwell and just said, oh, they can't be involved in a playoff, surely. But slowly but surely it just chipped away. Yeah,
and I'm sure everybody else round about there will look at Motherwell last year, and they'll look at what happens when you get into that situation. It's very difficult to get out of it. You need players that have been there maybe before to know what it's all about. So certainly all the teams down there will be even more conscious of what can happen if you don't start winning games.
Yeah, Dundee United against Partick Thistle. If Motherwell Dundee, you know, is a big one. So is this match at Tannadice as well for Mixu Paatelainen. It's all right, slowly but surely starting to show a little bit. As we mentioned last week, they had countless chances, but you need to convert, Ruffy.
Yeah, I think they've been like that for the last 2 or 3 weeks. I think they have been creating chances, and unfortunately most of them have been falling to Billy Mackay, and he's been hitting the goalkeeper, and he's been scoring as well. But when all the chances are just falling to one person, you know, I think you've got a wee bit of a problem. So other people will have to sort of chip in, but certainly I agree with Mixer that I think they're looking better. I think they're looking more organised and looking a wee bit of confidence about them. Same as Motherwell, when a new manager going in with new ideas, you can see that the players are beginning to believe again.
Yeah, who did you have to get relegated, Ruffy? Just always like to remind myself as we head to the festive period.
I think it was Hamilton.
Yeah, though, as I must mention, as Davy McKinnon keeps reminding me on the text, your predictions are driving the boys on. It's as simple as that.
I said that to him. I says, the first time I go for Hamilton, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you just go on a winning run.
Exactly.
They're now thinking about the top six non-stop. Hamilton, Ross County and Inverness against Kilmarnock. Here a look at all the fixtures for Saturday in the Premiership. Of course, Hamilton take on Ross County, as we mentioned. Inverness, Kilmarnock, Motherwell against Dundee, Dundee United, Partick Thistle and Aberdeen against Hearts. And suddenly St Johnstone against Celtic after that positive message, Roughie, from Jeff Brown. Should St Johnstone be looking higher than where they are at the moment? Can they get to second?
Well, that's what happens when you're on a confident run. Stephen will tell you. You believe you can do anything, and certainly the results that they've had, particularly away from home, are as impressive as anybody about. So, the Celtic coming there with the form that they're on, I would expect that they would think they could take something out of that game. Celtic obviously coming back for a European game.
Yep, you mentioned Aberdeen Hearts. A lot of players that come in and talk about St Johnstone just say they're a nightmare to play against.
We actually, probably, again, talking about our first half performance against them, was probably one of the best performances we've had in the season so far. But Tommy Wright's done an incredible job there. You know, they always seem to do the same things. They very rarely lose games. They're winning games. Michael Halloran's in a terrific season as well. So, no, really good side, St Johnstone. Full of good pros, good players, and all credit to Tommy Wright.
Yeah, let's look at that championship because, if anything, Roughie, is it fair to say that maybe the lower leagues are providing the greatest excitement here? You know, because the top end, as Stephen mentioned, nobody can challenge Celtic. The bottom end will become interesting in the Premiership. But suddenly, the Championship, tomorrow, weather permitting, Hibs against Falkirk, I think is a real test for Alan Stubbs' side.
It certainly is, and I think Alan Stubbs realises that. You know, even though they're on the terrific run that they're on, you know, and so are Falkirk, and they'll go along there with a lot of confidence as well. And that's the kind of game that Hibs need to win. You know, if they're going to hang on to Rangers, they can't afford to start dropping points against games at home.
Yeah, well, they don't look like it, Roughie. I mean, I think they were a wee bit fortunate to actually get a win at Falkirk because of what I thought was maybe a refereeing decision that was very kind to Hibernian, but nevertheless they're grinding out results.
Yeah, but this will be a sign, you know, if they could Easter Road, and if they could win the game comfortably, maybe 2 or 3-0, that would set the right signals to everybody else. But I think Falkirk will give them a game tomorrow.
The reason why I'm loving it in the Championship, Stephen, is because, you know, one day you get Mark Warburton having a wee dig back, and then Alan Stubbs returns. It's like a game of tennis at the moment, with each of them trying to psych each other out in this battle.
It's great. You know, it's great to see. I think Alan Stubbs, again, we're talking about managers that have done really well. You know, it's his first managerial job. He's had to rebuild a side, if you like. They dealt with the disappointment of relegation really well. He's brought players in. His recruitment's been very good. And anytime he's really impressive when he speaks. He speaks sense. He's got players that are working hard for him, and I think Hibs could certainly be right up there with Rangers, and it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and at Ibrox, as well as an emotional day at the start, it's also a great day today, Roughie, because it's the first day I think I've read the papers and Mark Warburton's not been linked with any club today, which is an absolute scandal for Mark. I mean, surely we can give him a chance to be annoyed with the press once more. He can concentrate on his team, and no disrespect to Morton, but I think this is a game that we expect Rangers to win.
At home I do, and I've said this all along. I think I would be stunned if Rangers were to lose any games at home this year. From now on to the run-in, I think they're playing particularly well at home. If they're going to drop points, I think it's going to be away from home. But Morton are on a good run as well. Jim Duffy will go along there. We've seen Rangers not scoring 4 and 5 goals as they were at the beginning of the season, so Morton will go along there. I think if they can keep it tight, maybe nick a goal and make it a difficult day.
Here's the fixtures for the Championship for you to look at. Queen of the South against Wraith Rovers is an interesting one, because I think we're now looking and thinking it's Rangers or Hibs for the top spot, Falkirk in third maybe, Roughie, and then Queen of the South Wraith Rovers for that 4th spot.
Well, I think either one wins tonight. I think one of them go into 4th, don't they, on their own right, and that'll be another cracking game. I said Wraith Rovers right at the beginning to catch that 4th place, so if they win tonight, that'll help them along the way.
Yeah, here's one to annoy everybody. Give me your 1, 2, 3, 4 in the Championship, Stephen.
I still fancy Rangers to win it. I think, but I think Hibs will run them very close, and I would go Falkirk and Queen of the South.
Okay, we'll hold you to that and get you on the second last show of the season just to see how you fared. It won't be too difficult to beat me or Roughie because we've been murder at our predictions. I had Partick Thistle relegated and Hamilton Accies in the playoff, which again, all the Hamilton Accies players are reminding us there's no chance of that happening. Not that we would wish it on them, just to try and prove that we're right. Here's the table as it stands in the Championship as well, just so you can have a look at it, Roughie. There you are. Queen of the South will leapfrog Wraith Rovers, and if Morton should slip up, then Queen of the South will find themselves in fourth. At the bottom end, Alloa, I think, is going to take the Great Escape. Is that fair, Roughie?
Yeah, I think so. I think things have to change dramatically there. It's when you get just cordoned off for everybody else, you know, it's a difficult one to get back again, and the results, there's Dumbarton beat them again, you know, the results don't look too positive, but you never know, with a new manager might just freshen up things a wee bit. Okay, thanks to Stephen McManus for coming on the programme and sharing his thoughts with us ahead of Motherwell's game against Dundee. Join us tomorrow on the programme on STV Edinburgh and STV Glasgow. It's 2 o'clock. Murdo MacLeod, Gordon Smith and Alan Rough will be your panellists to take you over the 4 hours. If there's a ball that hits the back of the net, we will bring you the details with reporters at the key games. We'll also be talking in depth about that Ayr match against Dunfermline in the League One as well. Join us tomorrow at 2 if you can. Thanks for watching.